All right. Well, we're going to get started. Welcome to everybody once again. We're so glad you joined us for this month's webinar. It's called Lights, Camera, Audio Descriptions. And today's webinar is going to last a little over an hour. And there's several points during our training and in our presentations where we're going to give you a chance to ask questions or comment. But just some housekeeping so all this can be as smooth as possible. We have a number of attendees this month, so everybody's going to be muted until the question and answer sections. If you have a question or comment, please raise your virtual hand at any time and that'll be placing you at the top of the list so our moderator can call on you. To raise your hand, if you're using Zoom on a PC, you can press Alt-Y when you're in the Zoom window. To lower your hand, just press Alt-Y again. And if you've dialed in by phone, which I know we have one or two of those folks today, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *9 to lower. So this will make it easy. It'll put you at the top of the list so she can call on you. And just another thing to keep in mind, I did mention this already, but when the moderator gives you permission to speak, you also have to unmute on your end so we can all hear you. Our moderator today is the fabulous Elena. She runs videos, does sound, shares the screen, calls on people. She's busier than any of us on this. So thanks a lot, Elena. This webinar today is brought to you by the Lighthouse for the Blind Incorporated. Our organization is headquartered in Seattle and has manufacturing facilities in Seattle, Washington, Spokane, Washington, Somerville, South Carolina. And we also have service business and base supply centers in a number of other locations around the country. Our mission is to empower people who are blind, deafblind, and blind with other disabilities by creating diverse, sustainable, and meaningful employment opportunities. And we're currently hiring too. There are lots of job openings. So scope out our open positions at lhblind.org/jobs. So the webinar today is one of several exciting things we're doing as part of some new community-based programs and services at the Lighthouse. And that'll all be happening kind of continually over the next couple of years. So stay tuned for more and feel free to reach out to us with questions, and please share any of this information with people you think might benefit. And one final note, tomorrow you're going to receive an informational email with relevant links and notes on all the apps, services, and other items that we'll be discussing today. It's a great resource, so please be looking for that. Also in that email, there's a link to a survey that we'd really appreciate you completing. What you tell us matters, and we've already implemented tons of stuff that people have commented and made in the surveys, including some of our webinar topics and what we talk about here. So little introductions. Hey, haven't done it yet. I'm Tim Paulding, and I manage our computer training programs and our Braille literacy programs at all of our locations. I'm located at our Spokane location, and I also teach orientation and mobility there too. I've been in the blindness rehabilitation field for about 15 years, and 10 of those have been at the Lighthouse. And I've taught both assistive technology and orientation and mobility for most of that time. And I also happen to be blind. And Everett.
Hello, my name's Everett Elam. Everett, like the city in Washington, or apparently the sports team location. I've been in the blindness rehab field for nine years. I have been from Little Rock, where I created and ran an assistive technology curriculum for World Services for the Blind. I moved to St. Louis, got my teaching license there, and now I am in Spokane. When I'm not teaching AT, I am a trail runner, got a 10K on Sunday, which I'm super excited for. And I've also started work in audio gaming and audio game accessibility. So I'm super excited to do that as a side project. And I teach computers and assistive technology here at the Lighthouse. And I also sort of work on the accessibility committee. So if there's a document or a form or a website that needs some remediation, I do what I can to provide someone the reason why JAWS is not working on a form or a document or a website. So that is who I am.
Well, awesome. And I think Everett has our
And I
objective and roadmap and kind of what we're going to be covering today.
Okay. So our objectives for today, this is what you've all signed up for, and we certainly thank you for doing that. Again, for your PC users, you can press Alt-Y to raise or lower your hand. That'll put you at the top of the list, and our moderator, Elena, will snap up your questions and deliver them to us. For a touch-tone phone, you can press your star key and your 9 key, and that'll raise your hand, and she'll just call out your number. So our objectives for today: we're going to provide a brief look at the history of audio description. We're going to expose participants to an individual who is working successfully in audio description and just happens to be blind. We're going to provide strategies and methods for a screen reader for accessing AD content, AD being audio description. Wow. And we're also going to provide you with what's happening currently in audio description, because there's a lot of different things happening on a lot of different fronts. So at this point on our roadmap, it says I'm going to introduce Joe Strecce. Tim, do you have anything else here?
Just want to say what's up, Joe Strecce. Thanks for joining us, man. It's awesome.
It's a great pleasure, guys. Yeah, I'm excited to be joining you all today.
So I'm not a big fan of reading people's bios, and Joe has a very super prestigious one. So I'll just hit a few key points, and then you can take it from there if that's good with you.
Sounds great, dude.
So Joe has been the lead for accessibility and inclusion for some of the largest productions in the world. That's not in the country, that's in the world. He assesses accommodations for actors in background of all different backgrounds, including the Apple TV series C, which starred blind actors. You guys are hearing that right. There are blind actors performing on mainstream services like Apple. He recruits actors with disabilities for productions around the world, not the nation, the world, through his networking connections. And Joe has advised some of the biggest filmmakers and streaming services, combining creativity with management experience in all roles. Okay, so that was pretty prestigious. And now round of applause, everyone clap at home. And thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. I thank you for including me. Audio description is so important. I can't do the work I do in television and film without audio description, and I use it every day for my entertainment as well. So great pleasure.
Here. So we just thought we could get a brief introduction, maybe a few stories from you, and we've allocated about 12 minutes for that. So okay. I'm gonna be quiet, and you can just tell us about the Joe experience.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to get to work in television and film. I didn't always think that was going to be the possibility. Worked at a video store in high school, VHS tapes, for like 4 years of high school, and went for my undergraduate is in communications and media, but my graduate work from Florida State is in around blindness, like orientation and mobility, teacher of the visually impaired, some of the VRT classes, as well as a specialty in transition from school to work. But I've always been passionate about how looking at films and television and how looking for myself in television and film, really, like early on, trying to find myself watching films like At First Sight and being like, that doesn't, I'm not, no, I don't see myself there. Val Kilmer and all. Yeah, but not that there aren't massage therapists who are blind, and there are, but just a number of things throughout the film. Yeah, I became critical of it, and I started writing about it. Besides working in, I taught orientation mobility. I was did my TBI stuff in Brooklyn. I Oh, what else? I did a whole bunch of stuff in the blindness world, and then it ended up at the American Foundation for the Blind when they formerly had Career Connect, and now, which is now with the American Printing House for the Blind. And for fun, though, at night I would write about um, popular culture and television, film, um, anything that involved blindness, or whether it was actors or reality shows and stuff like that. And I started reaching out to the people who were doing it and interviewing them. And I guess over time, people took notice. So some documentaries reached out, some commercial casting, and I started helping them find people who are blind or low vision to be in commercials and stuff. And writers room reached out for a show that I've never actually seen, called Royal Pains, still to this day. I think it was season 5. I worked on 3 episodes with the writers room when they were introducing a character who was blind, and just like slang and practicality and stuff. um, and I was like, oh, that was kind of cool, and really like a hobby kind of thing. And then another show reached out soon after, and executive producers from Royal Pains offered to be a reference, but later on. But I first created the job description, and most of the people that were doing type of advisement on television and film were sighted folks, and I'm blind, I can't see.
Mhm.
And trying to uh, figure that out, and figure out what they needed, and but I bring my own perspective, but also the people I've worked with over the years. Like, I've worked with thousands of people who are blind or low vision, instruction and other ways, and then I'm friends with them too. So if I don't know the answer, I know other people who do. Like it's easy to reach out to your network and ask people. So it turned out to be Marvel's Daredevil. So I worked with the lead actor, the child version, Skylar Gertner, who's on Ozark as Jonah, um, and then another actor, and some background performers. And I worked on the scripts, the props, the set decoration, um, and it was a cool experience. It was like having 2 full-time jobs. At the time, I had to relocate to New York for it, and I was pretty much on call. And I would be there anytime they were doing Matt Murdock stuff and some of the superhero stuff, but my expertise is not in superheroes. So, and one of my first questions when going on the Daredevil is like, is the actor blind? And they're like, no, he's not. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay. I was trying to figure out what, because originally they were really secretive. They wouldn't even, I wasn't allowed to say Daredevil until Charlie Cox mentioned it on my work with him on Seth Meyers. I had like this 13-page non-disclosure agreement that I would probably never be able to mention it.
Hey, Joe,
And
very quickly, could you
yeah,
just high point what Daredevil is? Because I know we have
oh,
some
Marvel's
nerds like me
Daredevil.
who are, yeah, yeah.
It's a comic book based. It came out in, I think, 1964 by Stan Lee, maybe 65. I think 64. But I'm a fan from when I was growing up of the comic, and where this kid gets toxic waste on him basically, and ends up with he ends up blind. He gets hit by this kind of like a truck with or I think in the show it was a forklift, but I think in the comic book it was a truck. uh, Drops this barrel and such, and he's laying in the toxic waste, and he ends up getting superpowers out of it, and he's blind, and because the toxic waste gets into his eyes. Um, Again, written in like 1964, created, and it's been going ever since. And they made a movie with Ben Affleck, Fox did, which I was not a fan of that film, truthfully, and not totally about Ben Affleck either, but it was more like, well, a couple things. There was some technique issues, but also it was disjointed in whether it was a comic book or a reality type portrayal of the comic book. So,
Mm.
um, but they were committed not to doing that, and being more detailed. I brought in all the things I thought was wrong with the original, and specific to the blindness stuff. And I got to work with Charlie Cox, and we spent I don't know, months preparing. And Ben Affleck was in a film called Daredevil. It was just called Daredevil, and then the show is called Marvel's Daredevil. For the person who asked the question there, you're welcome. They said thank you, but I I did that, and then I went back to full-time work with doing my stuff, and I would advise like from a distance. Like I made all these videos. Each actor learns differently, and I taught him as I would teach a student who was blind or low vision, and so I taught them blind and street crossings, all kinds of stuff. Like scared the crap out of him, and didn't realize until his interviews later on. But and we're still close to this day, good friends. And then I ended up taking a job in Pennsylvania to be the head of services for PA for people who are blind or low vision. But a few days beforehand, I get contacted by a producer, and I end up getting offered to work on the OA for Netflix as Britt Marling was creating the show and getting prepared. And so I ended up telling them I have a full-time job starting on Monday, and it was like Thursday, or no, it was Friday morning. So I jumped on a train and spent the weekend with her, and then had night calls with departments and stuff. And then every weekend we would spend working on all the skills under Sleep Shade. She was very committed to learning all the skills. Braille, she learned like grade 1, started getting into grade 2. Our time was running out, like where we could spend that much time. But we spent months, basically, if you put the days together, just working on, and at times like 8 hours under Sleep Shade, wandering around Jersey City. And she wouldn't take it off, which was, I was a little surprised by that. And there are plenty of funny stories from those times. And later on, after years of working in PA, a show reached out, and it was Francis Lawrence and Stephen Knight, who created PK Blinders, and Francis Lawrence, who directed 3 out of 4, now 4 out of 5, Hunger Games films, and Red Sparrow, and these studio heads, and then Apple. And Apple, I love Apple products, and I was like, oh, Apple. And they didn't know what they needed, so I started working on scripts, and then kind of I had to decide if I wanted to take a full-time job with them. I was like, this is a risk, you know. I have a very good career, and but I took it, and I gambled, and went off to Vancouver, British Columbia. It was going to be many different places prior, but my role just kept growing while I was there. I worked on scripts. I also worked with a movement team as we built out the cultures and the postures of the people and differentiating these groups. See is a show about, like, basically crazy idea. A pandemic happens, and current times or so, and majority of the population is killed off, though, and we're down to like 2 or 3 million people on Earth, and all these people that survive are blind. And then our show takes place hundreds of years later, after different cultures and societies have built out, and kind of the environment has recovered from what our human race has done to the Earth. And it's a kind of a science fiction action show with Jason Momoa as the lead, who's not blind, and others. But we also, over 3 seasons, brought on 35 actors who are blind or low vision. Most of those being recurring, like 20 or so parts, meaning that they were in multiple episodes. Hundreds of background performers who are blind or low vision, and we did that in British Columbia, and then season 2 and 3 were in Ontario, outside of Toronto, all over, and we did the same there. And yeah, I got to, in season 2, I cast like every role with the showrunner Jonathan Tropper, and in season 1, Dan Schatz and John Steiberg, who are the showrunners for Percy Jackson now, and also for The Old Man, really empowered me, and kept my role grew. And like some of the scenes were based on some of my ideas. I used to keep lists of ideas going and sharing with them and little things about blindness that most people wouldn't know. And like our movements of our army are based on stuff from my time, whether playing Paralympic sports or going to conventions, and how we connect and move through large crowds and stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And yeah, and then I worked on All the Light We Cannot See, which the teaser came out yesterday. And I won't be able to talk about that too much yet, but coming November 2nd, it said. So that's a limited series for Netflix, and yeah.
That's awesome, Joe. And just so everybody knows, we've got an audio described trailer of C that we'll be viewing a little bit later. So, Joe, where do you feel like you've made the most impact in making film and entertainment more accessible and inclusive? Like, is there a specific project or something that went like really well?
I would say, I'll get to talk about All the Light We Cannot See down the line, but it went very well. But C was kind of an experiment, and I got a, I had a lot to say. And after season two, and I was a co-producer. Season three, I was co-executive producer, and I got to do a lot of different things. So like after season one, I took feedback from the blindness community regarding audio description, and I heard what they were saying, and I tried to make changes. So I got involved in our audio description. I didn't write it, but I wrote with my assistant, and I wrote little bullet points of things that we would want highlighted in each scene, in all the cuts, and so that they could use that while they were making the audio description. And then we had comments back and about some of the stuff, and we also broke some rules in audio description, and put some Easter eggs into the audio description, which was as we went on, and it was kind of fun. And they fought me on that, but Apple agreed, and they agreed. They said this won't be the norm on all shows, but for our show, it was okay. Yeah, it was exciting. And I think the biggest thing was bringing inclusion, getting all these actors and, people who typically didn't have the opportunity to go into acting school, or never thought that was an option, or maybe had done some community theater, or just naturally had talent, and getting to find those people and look through all these auditions, and basically, learn how a show is run. I was extremely involved in like every aspect, whether it was our amazing props department, set decoration, or whether it was the stunts, working with our stunt team. Early on we were figuring out what we were doing, and then later on it was like they got it, and we kept giving notes, and they would fix it, and such a great team atmosphere. And I felt really lucky, and I'll be saying the same about All the Light down the line. There's some amazing people to work with. And I can't say enough about Aria as well, but whether it was Hera Hillamore, who played Magra, or Brie Klauser in season one, and Marilee Talkington in season one, or Donovan in season one. All these people we got to discover. Jason Crawford is this 6'6.5" tall dude who played college basketball, and who's blind now, and he got to fight with Jason Momoa in season three. Yeah, so
Wow.
I don't know, like getting to do stunts. Sometimes it worked out. Sometimes the actors were not as good as stunts as we thought they would be, and they were.
Yeah.
So, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, that sounds really cool. You sound like you're really passionate about this, and it's totally evident in what you're talking about and the way you're talking about it. So maybe we could transition a little bit, like what goes into creating an audio description?
Yeah, I would say,
Someone's got to write it, right?
Well, great question. Typically, the actual film production, has really nothing to do with the audio description. There's like a real disconnect there. And typically, the person and the writer is watching the cuts of the show, and going through and making notes, and then writing like the beginning, and as we're still doing like some visual effects, so things are changing. So they have like basic drafts that they're going through with audio description, and but so that's one of the things we wanted to change after season one, because there were things described that were not the intent. It wasn't what it was supposed to be, or wasn't what they were doing, and it annoyed us a little bit. We're like, that's not what they're doing. There's this key moment that's used in, I think, in the trailer probably, or for season one, or maybe it was used in a lot of ads, but it's this one character and they're going into New Alchemy. She's reaching out with her arm, and it said she's feeling the air, but she was actually using the sun to keep orientation, like as she was walking in this new area, like feeling the sun on the back of her hand and arm. So little things they wouldn't get or understand, and like yeah, so kind of clearing up some things, but also bringing more detail, like the community, whether at NFB or in the American Council of the Blind. We met with both and showed them the first couple episodes, and then as all the people around, we traveled around to the consumer group conventions. I kept getting feedback and about things they saw or questions, and I'm like, well, we could fix that. So we tried to build in, like, fix things as we went around the audio description, and you know, not every production is going to have a producer who's on set. I help block every scene and see, like, especially like probably episode 4 or 5 on probably 4 of season 1, when a new director came on, Anders Edström, and Francis was including me more and more, but we were trying to figure it out. And Anders is like, I want you there and helping to block every scene. I also want you there to give criticism. And I had a person audio describe every take of our show, you know, as we went on. And so I blocked all of season 2 and 3 with our directors, and I learned so much about it because of that, you know, being involved in that detail. Yeah.
So the person writing the audio descriptions isn't always the person who's reading them, or is it ever?
Oh, most of the time it's not the same person.
They have
but they could.
voice actor doing the audio
Yeah.
descriptions. Okay.
They could do, and they call them, I think it's voice over or narrator.
Okay.
And it could be the same person. It could.
Okay. I've noticed some audio descriptions really make a movie with the descriptions of the scenes and the detail, like you're reading a book with actors. And then others, I think I watched Elf a while back on Amazon Prime, and that was used text-to-speech audio, and it was very minimal. Very minimal.
It is. And also
it was lame.
It's tough also, like, when sometimes, like, if they can't fit the words beforehand,
right,
and then when they put it after, sometimes that's awkward. And I know there are points when you can't do that, and you can't put it in front of it, but it is an art form. And but I agree with you. Truthfully, everyone is different about how much description. I want more description. I want to know more. I would love a filmmaker version of audio description where it told you about camera angles and stuff like that, and shots. But that doesn't exist. But I get it from my assistants when working with them. So yeah.
What's a specific piece of technology or software that you've had to learn or get adapted? Because I know movie scripts are not Microsoft Word based, right? Like it's panels, or
so but they create PDFs, and the PDFs tend to be accessible. But it depends on, like, some of the softwares are not. If you go into them, say I was editing a script of some sort and they want me to make the changes right in the software, but some are becoming that way. So I think we're moving forward, like, you know, whether it's what is it, Final Cut and Final Edit, and then, or Final Draft. And then there's also and I was just at the National Association of Broadcasters show, where it's like 80,000 people, broadcasters and filmmakers and stuff. And and all kinds of technology. And I'm going to be testing one of these film editing softwares for this company. They're working on some accessibility, and I think we're getting better and better. And I think the more filmmakers we have out there who are blind or low vision, mostly I would say in the blind side, because low vision's a little different in that realm, accessibility wise. But I think we're getting there. We're not there. We're nowhere near there. And I don't think most film sets, I think we're starting to get some inclusion, which is a great thing. But when I go in, I have to win people over. I have to create those relationships, but I also have to be assertive. I have to be able to handle, I think I was in season 2 or 3, and every employee that we brought on for my shows have to go through like an orientation. They have documents they have to read and stuff. But in the nature of the business, there are day calls who, when someone isn't able to be there, like they're down to, you need everyone there. So if they bring someone in last minute, they don't get that training. So I think I was standing outside by our washrooms, and this guy goes, "It's so nice that they let you be here." And I go, because everyone knew me. I'm pretty well known. And I was like, "Who are you? And what do you do here?" And he goes, and I'm like, "Well, I'm like co-producer of this show, and I've been on it since it was like 9 people, like." And I'm like, "So they don't let me be here. They want me to be here. They pay me to be here, and that's why I'm here." And that's my role. And I was nice about it, but I'm like, and I've had other people, only a couple people say stuff like that, and I'm like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about, okay? Or then they'll see me on set, what I'm doing, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And still, people don't get totally what I do at times, but then they figure it out. Yeah.
I think some people might be dying to ask you some questions, Joe, if that's okay. We got any questions out there? It's just such a wealth of info there, Joe. That's awesome.
So for new participants, Alt-Y will raise your hand, and *9 from a touch tone phone will raise your hand, and Elena will get you in the chat.
All right, so it looks like we have a question from Lisa. Lisa, I'm unmuting you.
Hi, thank you. This is so fascinating. I'm actually in Philadelphia, so I'm curious, Joe, where you were when you were in PA. But my bigger question, well, 2 things. What sort of accommodations are these places giving people? I'm actually low vision and looking to get into voiceover work, but wonder what sort of accommodate, because now you have to do your own material.
You do.
From home, so you have to have your own setup. So what kind of accommodations do you find that these different studios or whatever are willing, how much are they willing to invest, or are you kind of on your own? Like, do you have to come fully equipped? And then I guess the other question, not really related. So one of the things that conversations I keep having and hearing are, you mentioned the disconnect between the producers and the actual audio description team. What about the kind of separation between the describer or the narrator or that voice and the content? What have you heard, or what have you seen about places getting better at making the voice as much a part of the experience, and that voice reflecting the content? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you make sense. So I would say I did a session with Tim David from Apple, who does like the technical side for audio description and also for captioning in technology and stuff. And him and I were talking about, he was talking about captioning and audio description. I was talking about the practical side. And I introduced him to a couple of people, Thomas Reed from Pennsylvania, and Read My Mind, his podcast, as well as Roy Samuelson, who was mentioned earlier. And really, I think they're starting to take note, like about culture. I'm going to go to your second question first. Culturally, you'll see. I think, and Thomas and I have conversations about this stuff. They're reaching out to people and being more culturally sensitive. Like if a topic should be voiced by someone who's Black or someone who's from some other background, they're starting to do that. And they should be. Like Thomas's example is Black Panther. Like audio describer from Black Panther was, I think, British and white. I'm pretty sure. Yes. And that doesn't connect with the story. It takes you out of it as well. Yeah, I think that's important. I think they're starting to realize that. And I think that these are companies also like that produce it. Like they will, like a network like Netflix or Apple TV Plus or whatever, contracts with different companies to produce the audio description. And I would say most often the companies are deciding that who the voice is or whatever. So it's not always the networks that's making that decision, because but I think they are taking notice of it. And people have requested certain people at times. I think that is only like in one or two cases. But yeah, and then equipment wise, yeah, it's really on you to have your equipment. And then often it's working with a company that's doing it, or like Thomas does as well, or there's Descriptive Video Works and all these other companies now that contract with these different networks and stations, and it's not always all one. So talking to them too. But the recording part, if you can do the recording, most of these people are in have either a closet they've adapted to make soundproof, or they've got one of these little booths. It's like I'm putting my hands up above my head, like they're tucked in this little box, recording, and with their computer and stuff to make sure the sound is crisp and clean. Yeah, I would say most people are doing it on their own, in that realm, and I don't think there are many accommodations. And I don't know if you've listened to many of Thomas's interviews with audio describers, but I really strongly suggest you go back and listen to them. They're pretty great and detailed and going. There was also I think it was on blind abilities. There was a discussion I was on with, I think it was Bree Klauser, it was Stephen Letness, who's was on it as well, who's a composer who's legally blind. And there was and he also does some audio description stuff. There was some good conversation in there about it, but I think Thomas Reed, Roy Samuelson both have podcasts you should check out. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Hey, so other questions?
Yes, we have another question from Wendy. Wendy, you are unmuted.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. First of all, Joe, I just want to say so much congratulations to you and excitement for what you're doing. And thank you, not just for me, but I'm sure for many other blind people that really enjoy audio description. So hats off. I think it's great. And I don't know if you've been involved at all with the audio description when you mentioned Vancouver. One of my favorite shows is The Good Doctor, and they did start audio describing it this last 2 seasons, I think. And I love the audio description that they do on that one. It's my favorite narrator voice, and also they just do a wonderful job. So I don't know if you were involved in that or not. I want to give you a chance to answer that, but I also have just a very practical question about feasibility and expense for retrofitting a performance theater or auditorium, so that they can show one that's already showing movies, but they're not audio described movies. So how feasible is it and how expensive is it to retrofit a space so that they have the equipment for audio described movies?
Okay, I don't think I know the answer on that, but I've used a lot of those systems before. But no, there are definitely cheap ways to do it. Like, but the good ways cost a little money, and you a certain number of units depending on how many units you're going to purchase as well. And you know,
Or perhaps if there's resources that I could consult, to get that information together to present to a place.
Yeah, good question. I don't know actually. Do you guys have any knowledge on that?
I don't. I did some research yesterday. I couldn't even find like the name of the manufacturers for the equipment they use at the large movie theaters.
One is Sony,
Sony,
and they do one. I don't know there are two major ones. I remember this from another conversation. And I've played with a bunch of the units, obviously, like in travels, going to the movie theaters all over. And I feel like there might be a third one out there, and then now there's some people playing with the apps, trying to create accessibility so you're using your own device. But it still hasn't.
I'm familiar with those. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I moved into a community a year ago, and they have a really nice performance theater auditorium, and they show movies there every night. But I'm not going to them because they're not audio described, and I really have come to love going to audio described movies. And so I wanted to approach them with this, but I don't know quite where to start or what we're even talking about.
How old are the movies? Because
current ones, but they're not, a lot of them are current.
All digital projectors are equipped with transmitting this, from what I understand.
Really?
If it's a digital
projector. So where can I get that information?
Well,
because they may have a digital projector.
Because then it's just getting the actual units to connect with it. The other option is I don't know. Wait, there was all for access, but I don't think they have much populated yet. There was the other one out of the UK.
Spectrum Access.
Yeah, well, there's Spectrum as well.
If I put my email in the chat, maybe someone could get back to me if you have.
Absolutely, yes.
That would be great. I'll be happy to do that.
And I think we have time for maybe one more quick question before we got to move on to our next segment.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Wendy. All right. So it looks like we have a question from Joyce. Joyce, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you. I must say the presenter is a very motivational speaker, and I applaud you for that.
Are you talking about me? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Jim, always Jim.
All right, go ahead,
Joyce.
R2, I'm sorry.
Of course.
I work with Joyce, Joe. So yes. Thank you.
So my question is a simple one. I think I was probably breathing at the time when you were speaking. How do you spell C, which is the pandemic show?
SEE.
SEE, okay. And is that what platform is that on?
It's on Apple TV Plus, so it's Apple's streaming network as well. And there are 3 seasons, and we finished that show. I think Marvel's Daredevil was on Netflix. Now it's on Disney Plus, and there are 3 seasons plus the combined one. What is it? I'm forgetting the name now. That's bad. And then there's the OA on Netflix still. There's also
OA is just the letters OA.
Yeah, it's and then the letter O and the letter A. And season 1 is the only one that involves blindness. There are others. Like I've helped on scripts and different films, and I don't put my name on anything if I'm not there to film. So there was a film called See for Me that won at Tribeca Film Festival, and I don't think it's audio described. I didn't work on the actual filming of it, but I worked on the script with them. So, but Yeah, like there are a bunch of others, but yeah, and more coming.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Joyce. All right. So Everett, you're up for a brief history of audio descriptions.
All right, 140 characters or less.
Yes, sir.
All right. So in 1974, Gregory Fraser, who was a professor in college doing his thesis at the time, developed audio description for concepts for audio description for television for the blind. He was doing a broadcasting master's thesis at San Francisco State University. In 1981, so we're jumping forward a few years here, Margaret and Cody Fansteel collaborated in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
at the Arena Stage to create an audio description program for live theater performances, which is happening in St. Louis and with Mind's Eye Theater. It's happening all over the place now. So they were setting early trends for that. In 1990, when I was just a little boy, the WGBH launched education. No, they were an educational foundation, and they launched descriptive video service, which was a service you could order. I believe the VHSs were $80, and they came with these cool little braille labels, and that was always a good day when I was a wee lad on Fridays. But this isn't about me. There I go being a snowflake again. Audio description for television, and the National Academy of Arts and Awards, or Arts and Sciences, awarded special Emmys to organizations that provided audio description to television. Now we're in 2008. The Described and Captioned Media Program published its description key and guidelines for the description of educational media. Finally, in 2010, Barack Obama signed the 21st Century Communications Act, Braille, Communications and Accessibility Act, which mandates video descriptions on the top broadcast networks and cable channels on the most populated markets. And that was for achieving nationwide coverage. So that's kind of putting the legalities into things. So that is your brief history of audio description. Joe,
And
do you
they,
have anything? Oh, go. You were
yeah, they and the people in 1981, the woman you mentioned, she was blind, and they are actually ones who trained WGBH when they started, because WGBH originally was doing captioning and decided to add audio description, and which really they were tremendous and really pushed forward for a long time. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of the big describers all came from that DC connection, being trained in DC with those folks. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And there are still, off of that spider web of what was going on, there are still people using the theatrical talent in DC and places like Bethesda, Maryland, to do things with the talent. It's just sounds like an amazing place. I haven't been there, and I really, really would love to go to DC because of that theater. So now Tim is going to lead a discussion of the current state of audio description. We're going to talk about TV, spectrum access, and a few other things.
Oh, yes, we are. Hey, thanks, Everett. So there's so many different ways now to get audio descriptions. It's pretty exciting, like we're all talking about. But it being, it can be a little bit overwhelming and kind of a bit to navigate if you're just getting into it. So we're going to talk about the first thing we're going to talk about is movie theaters. Pretty awesome that most of your major theaters are now going to have audio descriptions. What happens if you buy your ticket, and then there's usually another little station you go to pick up a receiver device. Most of these now will provide audio descriptions or amplified audio. Thanks to a U.S. Department of Justice ruling, all digital projectors now can transmit audio descriptions. So in theory, you should be able to listen to any audio descriptions on any movie screen. But this conversion to digital projection equipment, which allows that reception on these little devices that you get, is an ongoing process. So older movie theaters, like your second run theaters or locally owned theaters, may not have this new equipment, kind of like one of our attendees was talking about. Legally, they had until June 2018 to comply, but it's really an ongoing process. But it's a safe bet that new theaters are installing this, and really your best bet are these major movie chains that have the equipment. However, many of us probably on the call today have experienced, oh, they set it on the wrong audio track. Or actually, the other day I went to a movie and it was providing audio descriptions, but the audio descriptions were not for the movie that I was watching. So they must have set it for a different theater. Like I'm usually trying to be really, really, really nice, but also very, very assertive, kind of like Joe was talking about, and make sure it's on the audio description track. Like sometimes you really need to say those things several times. We've got another one. So there's these kind of standalone apps that are happening. And the one that I know about, Joe might know about a few more, but it used to be called ActiveView. Who remembers ActiveView? It was bought out by Spectrum Communications, and it's called Spectrum Access. So this is a standalone app for iOS and Android. And actually, all you need is access to the audio of the title that you're trying to watch. And if the app has it in its library, you can sync up the app with the audio, and you can get audio descriptions or closed captions. So let's, Elena, let's run that Spectrum Access video clip real quick.
Manhunt, Deadly Games.
All these people want to talk to my Richard?
This is just the beginning.
Good dialogue makes for good entertainment, but it's the action between the dialogue that can make a good movie or TV show great. At Spectrum, we realize those memorable moments should be enjoyed by everyone. It's why we launched the Spectrum Access app for the vision and hearing impaired.
Getting started.
The app, which is free to everyone, provides audio description and closed captioning. The audio description feature allows those who are blind or visually impaired to listen to an audio track describing the action in between the dialogue.
Spectrum Access.
When you open the Spectrum Access app on your mobile device, you literally have access to hundreds of movies and TV shows. Simply select a title and download the audio description track. Then, while the same movie or show is playing on your TV, press the audio description bar.
Sync and play audio description only.
When you point your mobile device at the TV, the app syncs it to the TV screen.
Embry opens his tool bag and takes out a folding shovel. He also grabs a metal rod soil probe and carries both tools down into the crater.
Uh-oh.
And whether it's the beginning, middle, or end, the audio description will still match the action on screen no matter where you are in the movie or TV show.
Brennan watches the church service led out across the street, Richard and Bobby greeting parishioners as they leave the building.
The Spectrum Access app, providing greater access to all that Hollywood has to offer.
Well, I wouldn't say all that Hollywood has to offer. There's only about 500 titles total right now on Spectrum Access. It's growing, but some of their movies are pretty old. Joe, is Joe still on the call? Did you mention a couple other apps that are kind of trying to do the same thing?
I don't see him on here anymore.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Everett, do you remember him mentioning something?
I do not, but the audio descriptions for the devices from the theater kind of work in the same way, like what Tim was, like what the demo was talking about, where they are they're not listening to the TV or to the screen. They're actually I think they're receiving a broadcast, and that's how you can get some of those other wrong descriptions. But no, I'm not familiar with any other apps
Okay.
that do that.
Anyway,
Feel
this
free to
is
write
just
into the chat if you.
yeah, if you do know some. So this is just another way you could actually bring this to a movie theater if that theater if it was playing the title that you could find on Spectrum Access.
Like a Christmas matinee or something.
Yeah,
When they play
exactly.
the old dollar movies.
Kind of older ones. So TV and cable, new FCC rules require local station affiliates of ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox in the top 80 or 100 markets now to provide 87 hours or so per quarter of described television. There's tons more that's out there. 87 hours per quarter is only like 7 hours a week, and there's tons more out there. If you do if you do watch live television or do subscribers, if you subscribe to television like Xfinity or Comcast or Xfinity, Spectrum, Cox Cable, different stuff like that. A lot of those boxes that you're going to get with your cable service actually have screen readers built into them. There was another ruling that any set-top box produced after 2018 or 2016 had to have some kind of accessibility features with it. It doesn't mean they're great, but it means you can get some sort of access. I remember I had DirecTV back in the day, like 2015, and they had like a really crappy screen reader on it, but I could use it, and I could find what had audio descriptions. So tons out there on subscription TV. And then I also wanted to talk to you guys about streaming services. And this is really, there's a few different approaches. So streaming services, I'm talking about Netflix, Amazon, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Hulu, HBO Max. There's tons of streaming services out there, and there is tons of content on these streaming services with audio description. You just have to know how to find if that title has audio description, and then how to enable that. Right. So there's a few different ways to approach that. Let's say you only you only pay for Netflix. You can find a title that, say, everybody in your family wants to watch or you want to watch, and you can go to a certain area in that title under language. And it's kind of in the title description under language, and it'll say if it has an audio described track. And then we'll play a short clip a little bit later on how to enable audio descriptions in some of these. There's also something called the Audio Description Project, ADP. It's an awesome resource in partnership with the American Council of the Blind. And the website is actually really well maintained. It's up to date. It's very searchable by title, by streaming service, and lots of other options. It also provides detailed instructions on that website too on how to enable audio descriptions on a variety of these different services. So that address, and we'll put this in that email that everybody will get, but it's adp.acb.org. So I thought this was really interesting. Apple TV Plus, I'm sorry, Disney Plus has 1,162 titles. HBO Max has 769. Hulu has 377. Netflix has 2,202. Prime Video, and most of these are paid on Prime Video, but that has 4,200 titles. That all of those have audio descriptions. So I'm just going to give you a little rundown. So over Christmas, I wanted to find a specific Christmas movie. I think I was looking for The Santa Claus 2, because we'd watched Santa Claus 1, The Santa Claus 1 as a family, and I wanted to watch the second one with the kids. So I went to this audio description project website, and I found it, and then it told me what streaming service it was available on with audio descriptions. So then I went to my streaming service, and I found I went to that streaming service. I think it was Disney Plus that I watched it on. Enabled audio descriptions, and there it was. And actually, audio descriptions is enabled on almost all the devices in my house. So my kids watch movies, and the audio descriptions are playing. And I think it's good for the kids too to get sort of like, understand that language and details. We're actually gonna just skip this next video, but I just wanted to tell you guys really quickly that you can enable your iOS device to automatically play audio descriptions within settings. So if you go to your iOS device, you go to settings, accessibility, and audio descriptions, you can turn on a switch that will automatically play audio descriptions on your iOS device. However, that's only for the Apple ecosphere. So Everett and I have done some testing. It won't automatically turn on audio descriptions on Netflix or on Amazon Prime Video or on Disney Plus. But if you are watching something on Apple TV Plus or on iTunes that you like rented or bought on your phone, it'll turn it on automatically. So if you want that, you can go into settings and enable it, but it only works for Apple stuff or content that you purchase from Apple. So we're gonna keep moving here, and Everett, he's gonna talk about what?
So as Tim said, the Apple ecosystem is primarily what that switch in voiceover controls, and we're not going to show that video. What we are going to show you is kind of the wild west of turning audio description on and off with Prime Video. Prime Video is Amazon's sort of flagship video service. There's lots of free content, very current TV shows and movies as well, which have audio description. So the first thing that you want to do whenever you're looking at a movie, potentially to rent or buy or spend your hard-earned money on, is the English AD, and that's typically before you rent a movie, you go to the language or the audio settings, depending on your platform, and it'll say English AD as well as English. And it's like Tim said, it's a language-based mark that they give you. So what we're going to watch now is a brief tutorial done by yours truly. I promise it's not super long, or not truly, but it's a demo of how to set up audio descriptions, and we are using the Reacher TV show as our sort of guinea pig. So Elena, if you want to roll that,
let's roll it.
Beautiful Frihole footage.
App. We are now going to turn on the audio description options in Amazon Prime. The Amazon Prime Video app is in my app switcher right now, so we're just going to swipe up to that.
Prime Video, active. Swipe up. Prime Video, back, button.
Prime Video drops us into landscape mode. My charge port is to the left, and my earpiece is to the right. So we have Reacher pulled up. That's a show on Prime.
When retired military police officer, Cat W.
So there's the description of Reacher.
Star rating, 4.8, rated by...
There's the rating information.
Languages, audio, 16, subtitles, 33, button.
Dang.
Episodes, 8.
So if you want to see how if audio description is in something, you can check the languages and it will say English AD. That's Africa Delta. If audio description is available. That is true for Prime, iTunes Store, and I believe Netflix as well. So we're just going to play this episode.
Star rating, suspenseful, when retired, more, watch list, but, start, watch list, start over, but, star rate, languages, episodes, more detail, watch now, button. Landscape. Charge port to the right, video. Double tap to show video controls.
So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off because screen recording does not allow for video to play in at the same time. So we're just going to trek on down to the left of the screen, the bottom left.
Video. Double tap to show video control.
And it says double tap to show video controls. We're going to double tap here.
Enable air. Cast not connect. In. Video. Close. Reacher. Heading. Video. This video can't play. Video.
And this control disappears sometimes. That's very common. So we just double tap the video button. And then we look at the bottom left. And that audio setting is right there.
Video. Enable air. Audio and subtitles options. Button. Subtitles. Subtitles. English audio.
So there's English audio.
Deutsch audio. Selected. English audio description audio.
And that's the one we want to tap. So we want to tap the English audio description audio. It's already selected, but we'll tap it anyway.
Selected. English audio description audio. Select English dialogue. English dialogue boost. Medium.
There's also a dialogue boost, which I hadn't seen before, and that brings the dialogue up over the soundtrack. Very cool.
Notifications.
So there you go. That's a look at how to turn on audio description in the Prime Video app.
So the last thing I have to say before I turn it over to Tim is also your public library, if they have digital video or if they even have DVDs, those old things, might have audio described content as well. Public libraries are kind of the one-stop shops. You can get everything, bicycles, everything from that. So that is my part. And now Tim is going to describe how audio description content work or sounds, and then we'll take Q&A if we have time.
Yes, we will. Hey, and really everybody, Everett demonstrated Prime Video, but to enable the audio descriptions is very similar in most apps. Netflix, you have to do exactly the same thing. You go into the show, select the audio and subtitle options and find it there. Same thing with Disney Plus. Once you play the show, and I've noticed with many of these, once you turn it on, it's on for a lot of the different shows, but not necessarily. It's not always the case, but a lot of times it works.
Hey guys, this is Joe. I'm back.
Joe's back. Joe,
Thanks. We've got maybe 7 minutes.
Yeah,
left.
one thing. So yeah, we're running a little short of time, but I talked a little bit about Spectrum Access. Did you mention a couple of other apps that are trying to do the same thing?
Spectrum Access is is by far the largest one doing it, and and the one really. Another one is All for Access, but you could. The difference I think with All for Access is it's ALL, the number 4 access. Is that I think you can do captioning or access captions as well. And it's from Decapta, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, it was.
Right, but nobody's really doing anything bigger than
Amazon
Spectrum.
was talking about Amazon was talking about utilizing it, but I don't know if they've ever moved past that beginning stage.
Okay. Yeah, I sure wish Spectrum had more titles, but hey, it's they're working on it. So everybody, we are going to watch the C trailer. I'm sure Joe has never seen this before. The C trailer with audio.
Really never has.
With audio descriptions, so you can kind of get an idea of what that's all about. So get ready for your question and answers after that. So C trailer with audio descriptions.
Words appear, an Apple original. C. Trailer.
The moment has come.
Starts now. A bird flies between mountains toward a broken bridge. Words appear, an Apple original.
Centuries from now, almost all humans have lost the ability to see.
A group of woodland warriors moves over a rocky crest.
Some say sight was taken from them by God.
Lightning flashes over a body of water.
To heal the earth. For the few who remain, vision is only a myth.
An aerial view of slope-roofed shacks.
But after so many years, the power of sight has returned.
A newborn is held.
What is it?
Something's different. The children, they have the ability to see.
A baby stares skyward from the producer of the Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Oh my
children. They have power that we would call magical or evil.
We must protect them.
The director of The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay.
For centuries, we feared this day would come. The evil of light once almost destroyed the world.
And the creator of Peaky Blinders.
And now it has returned. Find the children who can see and bring them to me.
A tall, athletically built man with long dark hair stands at the mouth of a cave.
Now they will come for us.
If we kill the babies, they might leave us alone.
No! I stand with Baba Voss!
A group on horseback crosses a frozen plain. The long-haired Baba Voss walks briskly past the shacks. A woman falls from a rope bridge. The only way forward.
These children are a gift. They will bring knowledge. They will begin a new world.
Is together.
We are family. We are one. And we fight as one.
A young woman pulls back a bow. Another spreads war paint on her face. Baba stands motionless at the rocky crest as an army creeps up toward him. Baba blows a horn and armies collide on the crest.
I have to keep you safe.
The moment has come.
Jason Momoa, Alfre Woodard.
It's astonishing how the smallest moment can change an entire world.
A title appears, C. November 1st. Apple TV Plus. Subscription required for Apple TV Plus. Watch on the Apple TV app.
And there you have it. So I love it when trailers have audio descriptions. It really helps. I mean, it helps to have audio descriptions like everywhere. But yeah, everybody. So we talked about running about 10 or 15 minutes over. So we're going to take about 5 minutes for questions. So hurry up and press that Alt-Y and Elena will call on you. And I will take questions for about another 5 minutes.
I don't see any hands raised yet, but in the chat, Wendy asked, if you enable AD on the phone app, will it automatically transfer to the TV streaming service, or would you have to re-enable it for the TV?
I think re-enable.
Yeah, your TV.
Like Apple TV or Apple TV, like that would also matter. But even with Apple TV, I think you have to enable it.
All right. And then it looks like we have a question from Nelson. Nelson, you are unmuted.
And don't forget, you got to unmute yourself too, Nelson.
My bad. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Wow, that was
Sure.
a really great presentation, all of you guys. And excuse me, I just wanted to ask about that last trailer. So when this movies have been premiered to the theater, would this same type of audio work, or does it have to work on just the Apple TV and all this other type of platforms?
So,
Do you
oh my
want to
gosh.
answer?
Yeah, well, audio descriptions are like they're available at all kinds of different places in movie theaters, on subscription television, like your cable and set-top boxes, streaming services. We had that Spectrum Access that we talked about. You can get audio descriptions through there, and so be looking for that email that comes out tomorrow with links and information on all of this stuff. If you missed any of it, Nelson.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Boom. Keep them coming.
I don't see any more hands up.
That's it. Awesome, you guys. Well, great questions. Great to interview you and pick your brain, Joe. This was so helpful and insightful to be able to understand really what goes into making a good audio description, what goes in behind the scenes to making this stuff believable when we are portrayed in film. Pretty important that we have a voice, and I think that you're doing it, man. It's a pretty big deal.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on, and also just that you're out here doing that. And also as a person who's blind and received the services that allowed me to be independent. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
And shout out to Lucy. I saw your email, and I'll get back to you in the coming days.
Shout out. All right, everybody. And hey, don't forget to take that survey too. It really helps us. We love new ideas and feedback and all that.
And
Thanks,
please be sure to tune in May 17th for our next webinar on audio games. I just interrupted my supervisor. Sorry about that.
Well, I was gonna forget. I was gonna totally forget that.
Yes, we have an audio game developer on next in May. That's next month, and he's going to talk about one of the first side scroller games that he created. And as a gamer / nerd person, it's super cool. So please tell your friends. It's going to be really super low concept. We're going to break it down for you like we did here today. So please, May 17th, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Accessible audio games. I think we are in daylight savings time, dude. PDT.
Oh, so be there or be hexagonal.
All right.
It's also everybody. Right around Global Accessibility Awareness Day too.
Hey,
oh, is it?
Nice.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, everybody.
Cool.
Thanks again.
All right. Take care, everybody.